This is a Monday Mailbag edition of CBJin30 presented by Telhio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott. Thank you for being here today. It's a day of experimentation. I can tell you that right now. It really is, because when I do this show, normally I put out the audio version on SoundCloud, TuneIn, all of the normal channels. Wherever you get your podcast is where you get it, right? But I also usually put out the audio version on YouTube, on the Blue Jackets YouTube page. And, it does okay there. But I started to think during this pandemic, and we've been forced to do so many different things and do things that we normally do differently, I guess is the way I should put it, because, you know, I've found other ways to do this podcast. I've found other ways to do interviews on this podcast. And while I was thinking about it, I was thinking, well, I'm already doing these interviews with videos, as you've seen in the last couple of weeks. You've seen CBJ30 with Rick Nash or with Joonas Korpisalo, and we've had the video posted on the YouTube channel and then on the Blue Jackets Facebook account. So I started to think about it, and I thought, well, right now, especially, why can't all of these be done in a video format? So I am trying to do that for the first time today. So if you're looking at this on the Blue Jackets YouTube channel, you actually see video today. And you see me, and you see me wearing my glasses, which I have to have on because I have to read the questions. And I'll be honest, I'm not going to sit here and try to be more fashionable without glasses and not be able to see and not be able to get your questions right. So you see me here, you see me ready to go. If you're listening to the audio version, I just want you to know that now you can go to the YouTube channel and be able to find the video version there. So again, this is the first attempt at it today. There are going to be bugs that need to be worked out. I've got to get the lighting in my studio worked out a little bit better as we go along here. I know all of that. I've been dealing with all this through the other things that we've been doing, but um, it's all good. It's all good. Jack Little in our office was kind enough to give me this nice backdrop. It's got the logo right up here, the CBJ30 logo, so that we look really official and all that. So bear with me as I go through the growing pains of doing the show like this. And again, if you're listening to the audio version, you're saying, what's he talking about? Everything sounds fine. Everything's good. And that is good. That's the way we want it. I also want to tell you about my friends at Telhio Credit Union. Of course, like I always do, they bring you the show, and they have for quite a long time. So that I appreciate the most. But another thing you can appreciate is what they can do for you financially, especially in these troubled times. Maybe this is a good time for you to take a look at your finances, see if you have your money where you want it, where you need to have it. Maybe take a look at a credit union like Telhio Credit Union. Go to their website at telhio.org. There you can surf around. You can find out why you should join a credit union. You can find out about the different perks that they have that you might not be getting where you have your money right now. All of those things. Your questions can all be answered right there on their website. And if you can't find the answer to the question, it's very easy, especially during business hours. Just go to the right-hand side of the screen, and there's a live chat option right there. You can click on that, and a message box will pop up right there on your screen, and somebody will be with you immediately to help to answer the questions you cannot find your own answers to. Ohio Credit Union is open to everyone in Central and Southwestern Ohio. They are also federally insured by NCUA. Now, while I'm plugging things at this point in time, I want to take a minute to thank the people over at Homage for what they did 2 weeks ago, was it now? That, again, all the days run together. I don't know. I think it was a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Fox Sports Ohio reran the Blue Jackets playoff series sweep against the Tampa Bay Lightning last spring. And fine folks over at Homage put together these I got to get in the right spot. It's a nice T-shirt. I've got 2 words for you: series sweep. So I wanted to look. I'll be honest with you. I'll be completely honest. This was twofold for me today because I like the shirt. I just got it. They just sent it to me, so it's my first time wearing it. Very comfortable and all of that. So it gave me a chance to plug that, and it gave me a chance to not dress up and just wear a T-shirt on camera. So I wasn't going to back off of that. I thought it was a great opportunity, and you should know me by now. After a decade, you should know me. I'm all about taking advantage of opportunities. But let's get to your questions that you have today. First of all, here's a little recap of the week that was. All right. Joonas Korpisalo signed a contract extension with the Blue Jackets, 2-year contract extension That was, a week ago, a little over a week ago. And then last week, late in the week, it was Elvis Merzlikins signing a 2-year contract extension with the Blue Jackets. So just to make it simple here for you, the Blue Jackets have both their goalies wrapped up for the next 2 years. Money-wise, one got more than the other. That's something we'll talk about here as I get to your questions in just a few moments. But they're locked up. They are both coming back. They are both going to continue to compete against one another for the starting goaltender position. Now, who's it going to be? And who's going to win the battle? We already had one battle, and one guy won it. The other guy lost it. Then the guy that won it got injured, and then the other guy came in and took it over and did a great job. And then as the first guy came back from the injury, the other guy got hurt. So we haven't seen really, we haven't seen the competition between the two when they have both been healthy and they've both been completely on their game. And you can say, well, what do you mean? At the beginning of the season, Elvis was healthy and he was on his game. No, he wasn't on his game. Not even close to being on his game, right? We talked about him figuring out the speed of the game, figuring out the angles in the NHL, all of that stuff. He wasn't even close to being an NHL goaltender at that point in time. So now we're going to see these two compete with all the tools in the toolbox, if you will. So that's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's great that they got them both signed. Yeah, before I go to answering the questions, let me get out a little bit of my opinion first, because that's partly what you tune in for here, partly to hear your own questions and partly to hear what I think about all this stuff. Probably more what I think. But anyway, here's the deal. I think it's great they have both these guys signed. I think they really answered the questions that not only we had, but everybody in hockey had going into the season. Who was going to be able to step up and fill the shoes of Sergei Bobrovsky, who decided to leave? Was that going to be a big issue for the Blue Jackets? Goaltending. It was not. It was, I mean, it was in the early goings, but there were so many other factors about why it was. The team defense wasn't even close to where it needed to be early in the season and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's just, it was no problem at all. And that's why I'm glad they bring both of these guys back. They both have their strengths in big ways. I think they get along well. If you watch my interview with Joonas Korpisalo last week on this show, you could hear from him. You could see, if you were watching it, you could see that, you know, he and Merzlikins, they get along well. They were roommates in development camp years ago. So this is, there's not animosity there between the two. They're both happy to be competing with and against one another. Simple as that. So I think it's going to be good. I think it's really good. It's good to have that question answered, right? And I'm going to have some questions about the future and the not so distant future with both of these guys. But for right now, it is settled. You've got them both under contract. You know what you're going with next year. There are no questions about that whatsoever. Now, there are questions that you have involving the goalie situation overall. So let's go ahead and get to some of those. And I'm going to start it off with a voice question. I'm going to try a voice question a little different way here today too. So let's do a voice question right now.
Hey there, Bob. It's Don out in Virginia again. Before we talk goalies, just want to say thank you again for all that you do. You put out great podcasts and interviews, especially during the regular season, but now during this crazy time that we all live in, you're doing a great job keeping our minds off of the negative and the scary stuff out there. So thanks again for all that you do. Now, Korpisalo Merzlikins, I honestly would like to advocate for a split system between the two of them. I know a lot of people say that you got to have that one goalie so that he's, you know, in the game and in the flow of things. But I'd like to try to see us split the time between the two. I'm no expert, but they're both really good goalies, and they both are somewhat even in their experience. You know, Korpisalo's got a little more experience, but I'd like to see if we could split the time, and that could definitely benefit the team to have both of them skating well, and could also benefit the team next summer. I love the contract extensions for both of them, you know, 2 years. But I think a lot of people out there see a possible trade for one of them after this season. And if both of them could be doing well throughout the whole season, then we could definitely help bolster their trade status for either one of them going into next year, and, you know, could get us some firepower or whatever we need at that time. So what do you think? Do you think we could roll with two? Hey there, Bob. It's Don out.
Oh. That one. So it restarted again. Sorry about that. See, I told you there's going to be glitches. There's going to be glitches. But anyway, Don, thanks for the question. It's a good question, and I'll get to the full answer in just a minute, because first I want to I got some more questions right here. They came in via my email. Bobbyback at bluejackets.com, BOBBYMAC at bluejackets.com. This is from Ethan and Ed. And they say, I'm sure this question will not be the only one that you get regarding this topic, but the question is, why did the All-Star goalie, Joonas Korpisalo, take a 2-year deal for only a reported $2.8 million, and Elvis got $4 million a year? I've heard conspiracies about it being a setup for a trade, but I'm not necessarily buying into that. Was this Jarmo's way of naming, quote-unquote, the guy? In last week's CBJin30, Corpy couldn't have seemed happier for Elvis. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, and go Jackets. That's from Ethan and Ed. So thank you for that. All right. And it's really interesting. Okay. Now, the Korpisalo deal works out to roughly, what is it, $5 million? And the Merzlikins deal, the $4 million, is in year 2. But it's in the neighborhood of what it's like, or well, it's $8 million to $5 million. Elvis is getting more money. All right. And I don't get it. And I know Jarmo said that if it went to arbitration, the way arbitration is set up, that there would be, that Elvis, because of the numbers, would end up getting more money. But look, here's what I don't understand. And again, I'm not an expert on this contract stuff. I'm not. I just, you have a guy that's been your backup for several years. He gets the opportunity to be the starter. He grabs that opportunity. He was named to the NHL All-Star game. Listen, if this guy doesn't get hurt against the Chicago Blackhawks, he's going to keep rolling. He's going to go to the All-Star game, represent the team. And now, would he have gotten tired at some point because of the number of games that he was playing? Yeah, that's very possible. It's really possible, to be honest with you. But the other guy wasn't winning. The other guy couldn't win a game to save his life at that point. Now, I know when he did come in and everything got better, but look, fact of the matter is, the team defense got remarkably improved from the early part of the season until Elvis came in. I mean, by the time Elvis came in, they were playing such a great team game. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I'm really not. He did really, really well. I get that. He did really well. He made the adjustments he had to make. He kept the team in it. He put them in position to get into the playoffs and all that stuff. But the team defense was night and day different at that point in time than it was in the first 6 weeks of the year. So, 5 shutouts, 8 games, whatever it was, there's a lot of team to that. And Elvis even said that. It's not just me. There's a lot of team to that. Okay. Look, so again, the finances thing, whatever. But to answer the question, and this is answering both questions. You got the one question saying, I think they need to roll with 2 of them. And you got the other one saying, does this mean that the general manager has named the de facto number 1 goalie? And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, if I'm Joonas Korpisalo, am I upset that I didn't get as much money? I probably am. Is it going to affect my play? Not if I'm Joonas Korpisalo, because I'm a true pro. And by the way, he's getting considerable raise himself. But they do need both of them. They do. It's a fact. You just look at the NHL today. You look at the position itself. Playing 80 games a year is not. You don't do it anymore. You just there's so much lateral movement. There's so much that goes into each and every day. It's a grind, and you play the back-to-back games. You just can't do it. It is a much more physically demanding position than it was once upon a time. It really is, because of the way the game moves now, as fast as the game moves, as fast as you have to move to keep up with the game and all of that. So you need 2 guys. The Islanders did it a couple of years ago when they were splitting Thomas Greiss and Robin Leonard. Your problem becomes getting to the playoffs, who you're going to go with. And the answer is the hot hand, because if one guy gets in and he does well, then he stays. If another guy, or if he falters, the other guy comes in. If he does well, he stays. Simple as that. I think the league's changing like that. I really do. I think you need 2 guys. And you don't have to play them 40 games apiece, 41 apiece, or whatever. But, you can go 65 with your starter. and be just fine with that. 65 and 17. Now, are you going to pay a guy $4 million to play 17? And here's another thing. People talk about, a trade. Well, that's also media driven. And now anybody in the media would say, well, it's media driven because it's fact. You can't keep both of these guys forever like this. Okay. But that's where it's being talked about, right? I mean, if it wasn't talked about trading one of these guys, would you come up with that on your own? Or would you be like, okay, let's keep these two guys for as long as we possibly can? But here's the other thing that I know, and I know this for a fact. All right. 8-5 is 13 over the next 2 years, right? $13 million. And the guy that left here is getting 20 himself over those next 2 years. It's a bargain. This is a deal. Somebody's going to play his way into the starting position. And if they trade the other guy, they're going to get help that they're looking for somewhere else. Because here's the other thing. You've got, well, I saw in reading comments on stories, which I normally don't do, but I'm so bored because I have nothing else to do. People were talking about Matisse Kivlenieks and him being in the mix here, and then other people were beside themselves. This guy had a couple of good games, but you can't look. He is a good, viable backup option. There's no question about it. If he goes back to Cleveland, here's where you're going to start to have a logjam. Veini Vevalainen just played his first year in the American Hockey League. You've got Daniil Tarasov is ready to come over and play next spring. He's the guy. Tarasov is the guy that I've heard for years out of this whole group is perhaps the best of the group. And I've heard that from numerous people. So we'll see if that comes into play. And if it does come into play, at what point, and maybe he comes over and maybe he has a great year in Cleveland next year. And maybe by the time you get the next summer, now you're saying, well, we can move one of these guys because we know we have a viable guy in the system that's coming here. So we'll see. There's so many unanswered things. But the bottom line is they're both going to be here. I think that's great for the organization. I think it's great for each one of them. And as far as the particulars about the dollars and cents and future trades and all that, look, the dollars and cents thing, they're both going to go out and they're going to play their rear ends off. And the trade thing is going to work itself out one way or the other. And it's not even worth getting into all of that right now. Just be happy that they're here. Be happy that they are locked in, that position is taken care of. And there'll be so many other things to worry about along the way. I mean, you got a Pierre-Luc Dubois contract that needs to be done at some point here, right? So the goalies are done. Good news. Let's just leave it at that. Let's see. What else do I have? I think I have another goalie question here. I do. Jeremy sent this to me on Twitter at Bobby Mac Sports. Jeremy says baseball teams look for hitter to pitcher tendencies when they're doing scouting. Do hockey teams do the same when looking at goalies, or do goalies look for tendencies from offensive players, or is the advanced scouting more of a team scheme approach? This is it's a good question, and I really don't know the full answer to it. I know there have got to be some advanced stats that go to goalies. You should know by now. Look, I'm old school when it comes to this. Stop the puck. Stop the puck. I don't care how you do it. Just stop the puck. I don't care if you're the most technically sound goaltender like Sergei Bobrovsky, or if you are all over the place as Elvis Merzlikins is at times. I don't care. Stop the puck. I think a lot of times with goalies, when it comes to the eye test, again, you can tell by the way the guy carries himself and the way that he reacts to certain things, and the way he reacts to a goal, the way he reacts to a big save, the way that he throws all that technical stuff out the window just to battle, find a way, as John Tortorella says, to get the job done. So look, baseball is way more. It's easier in baseball. It's easier to do pitcher hitter, head-to-head one-on-ones, because it really is a battle between those two guys, right? I mean, it's the pitcher and his approach to getting the hitter out, and it's the hitter's approach to trying to figure out what the pitcher's throwing and then react to it and get hits. Well, with a goalie, there's so many other things. It's not just one-on-one. It's now, do goalies do they look for tendencies from shooters like on video and all that stuff? Of course you do. Of course. I mean, on the power play against Washington, where Ovechkin's going to be parked and how they're going to try to get him the puck and how you have to be ready to react to that and all that stuff. Sure, but there's there's five guys out there against you, and any one of them could have the puck at any given time. So it's a little bit different in that way. And again, if you're an advanced stats person, you're saying, "Oh, there's this and there's this and there's this," and look, okay, I'm sure there is, sure there is. But at the end of the day, I want the guy that's going to stop the puck. I don't care how he does it. I don't care if he does it with his blocker pad or his stick or the top of his head or the bottom of his skate. I just stop it. Stop the puck. Be a good teammate, and that's about it. That really, for me, that's all it comes to for goalies. Stop the puck, be a good teammate. I'm cool with that. I'm fine with that. Beyond that, it doesn't really matter much to me. All right, let's see. All right, here's another thing. Let's move into this because this was other news this week, and I'm sure it's going to be more news as we go along. The NHL is they're making moves to return. Okay, the NBA has already said that at the end of the week, Friday is May 1st. I cannot tell you how happy I am. I have never been so happy to see the calendar turn from April to May in my entire life. Personally, I haven't ever been so happy in all my life because I know come May 1st that there are going to start to be changes made back toward, well, I was going to say back toward reality, but back toward what we're used to. It's not going to get there overnight. I've been told that 10 million times. All I got to do is turn on the TV every afternoon, and I get told that, okay? But the NBA is ready to start letting their players go back to practice facilities in the areas where it's deemed okay by local and state government on May 1st. That's the NBA, all right? The NHL has not announced any of that yet, but the NHL this past week did make they did get into some conversation about returning to finish the regular season and the playoffs. And here's the deal. They're talking about vetting 4 cities, NHL cities. There a couple of weeks ago, there was talk about playing in a college rink or playing in some junior rinks or small rinks because there more than likely won't be people allowed to be at games. But the NHL has gone away from that. They have said we're going to play at NHL buildings because they've got everything. They've got the replay capability. They've got, it's going to be televised, obviously. So you've already got all the areas in the docks for the trucks and all that stuff. So they want to play in NHL rinks. Rightfully so. I'm okay with that. But they're looking at maybe 4 cities, and then you ship X amount of teams into each city and you play there as a hub. And Columbus is on the list. And for some people in the league, I think that is a bit of a surprise. For me, it's no surprise. For me, the surprise was when this first came out that they were talking about Carolina being one of the cities. No way. There's no way. And here's why there's no way. To me, it's not their building. It's not their town. It's nothing like that. It's about the practice facilities. Now, I don't know what they have in Raleigh. I'll be honest with you. We have never gone to a practice facility in Raleigh in my time here. If the team has, I haven't gone. All right. Maybe they did at some point. Maybe North Carolina State was playing a basketball game, but it would have been a day where there was no morning skate. It was just the extra guys went to skate and I didn't go. I have never, ever been at a practice facility in Raleigh, North Carolina. I don't even know how many they have. I know they have one that they are building, and I know that it is not done. And I know that the pandemic has factored into that because they stopped working on it. So, look, Columbus has the main rink. You've got the ice house attached. So that is, without question, that is a big bonus. I mean, they're looking to have 4 dressing rooms. You have to have at least 4 dressing rooms. Now, the Blue Jackets have their 2. And then where the other 2 come from, you can make shift a little bit, but that's doable. 4 dressing rooms. Practice rink is attached. Team can practice while another team's playing. 2 other teams are playing, sorry. And then the chillers, first of all, the chillers are under the Blue Jackets umbrella. So when you look at that, there are 2 sheets in Easton There are 2 sheets in Dublin. There are now 3 sheets in Lewis Center, right? So where am I at right there? It's 7. There's one in Worthington. So there's 8 right there. And then there's the potential of going to Ohio State. Have to put the ice in the big building over there. And then they've got the practice rink. That's 10 sheets of ice. 10 sheets of ice that you can get to in 20 minutes or less. So that's a pretty good deal, right? And again, with the Blue Jackets and the Chillers, you can find the open ice time. You can make the ice time. It's not going to be a problem. You can make it. So you got 10 sheets of ice, not counting the one that's attached to the building. And you've got plenty of hotels downtown. And you can, you can be in decent control. So Columbus is one of the cities on the list. When they talk about Pittsburgh, yeah, Pittsburgh's got a great practice facility. It's 25 minutes outside the city. So if you're staying at a downtown hotel and you got to go 25 minutes each way, again, it's just Columbus makes a lot of sense. It's pretty centrally located. Teams on the East Coast can get here pretty easily. So, and what were the 4? Right? The 4, and I looked at the story on The Athletic, and the top 4 were Columbus, Toronto was on there, Edmonton was on there, and was Minnesota. I don't know if they were in the top tier or the second tier, whatever. But anyway, Minnesota is another place that's on the list. So that's the situation. So that's what they're looking at. Okay, they're looking at creating hubs. Now I've got a lot of questions about this, like how do you finish the regular season? Are you going to finish against just the teams that are playing in the same hub as you? Because can you finish the regular season the way it was on the schedule? That means you're going to have to travel. If you're going to play Tampa, let's say Toronto becomes the hub, and I'm not convinced about Toronto, by the way, because of their coronavirus case numbers. But let's say they're going to be the Atlantic Division hub, and Tampa's going to be there. Tampa was on the schedule. Are you going to fly to Toronto to play Tampa? Or are you just going to stay within your own little hub until the conference championships come to play? Who knows? There's so many questions. But I do have a question here. And this comes from Jim. And Jim says, the more I ponder playoff scenarios, the more I'm simply in favor of just calling the season done. Let's move on with the draft and get on with it. I don't believe anyone wants to compromise next year. And if we do have a Stanley Cup, won't it always just be contested as a quote-unquote fake cup? Maybe it'll have an asterisk after it, says Jim. Let's say the Blue Jackets win it. For the rest of my life, I'll have to hear how we can't be included in any talk of the great teams because there's an asterisk after our team. So let me say, Jim, what I'm about to say isn't directed specifically at you. This is just a lot of things that's been building up inside of me when I've read comments like this all week long. And I've read comments like this from Canadians, for crying out loud. Just end it. It's not worth the time. What are we doing here? Why are we? And I don't get it. I don't get it. It infuriates me when people say just be done with it. It really does. I think it is important to come back and finish it. Personally, I do. Is it because I work in the sport? Yeah, that's got something to do with it. There's no question about that. But I just think that right now, the way it is, I think it's important, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It's important for the morale of the people. The NFL draft, did you watch any of the NFL draft over the weekend or last week from Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Did you watch any of it? I did. You know how much of that I normally watch? 0. But I watched a lot of it. Why did I watch a lot of it? Because it was the only live sporting event available. And the ratings were through the roof. And it was different. And it was funny, with everybody being in their homes and they were checking in the homes and all this stuff. And there was goofy stuff going on. And, they made the best of a bad situation. You got to bring these games back. All the sports. You got to bring them back for the morale. And it's just, look, I'm sorry. I think we're to a point. As I said, we're getting to the end of the month here. I think we're to a point where things are getting better. And I don't want to get into this. I don't want to get into a whole political thing about this. I don't. If I did, I could talk for hours about it, but I don't want to do that because I know that's not what this is all about. But I think things are getting better. I think it's time to start trying to get back to where we were. That's going to be a slow and a long process enough as it is. But just this whole, well, let's just forget about it. Let's just go. Where's the fighting aspect of this? Where's the fighting aspect of it? To say, forget it. Let's just forget about it. Let's just get on with the draft and this and that and the other thing. I don't get that. I don't get that. Finish what you started. Look, there's a lot at stake for the league on this too. You know, there's a lot of money on the table. I get it, for the players, for the owners, and all that stuff. But that's not the aspect I'm coming at it from. I'm just coming at it from, let's get back to normal. And this is a step in that direction. It's still not going to be normal. It's not going to be full buildings. It's going to be a made-for-TV event, probably. In my case, it's going to be a made-for-radio event. It's going to be the most unbelievable radio you've heard in your life. But I just hate that attitude and that sentiment. I do. It drives me nuts. Now, who wants to watch hockey in the summertime? Okay, well, what are you watching right now? Replays of the 1998 Stanley Cup Final? I mean, give me something. Do you realize what an incredible summer of sports it's going to be? The NHL returns, the NBA returns, Major League Baseball returns. I mean, it is going. You're going to go from. It's going to be feast and famine, right? You've got the famine right now. There's nothing going on, and then there's going to be everything going on at one time, and it's going to stay like that for months. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be great. And they're talking about having the draft, like having the June draft and doing the virtual draft and trying to jump on what the NFL did. Okay, that's great. And you can talk about that and they can have that conversation all day long. But if you're not finishing the season, how are you setting up the draft order and the lottery? Look, the Blue Jackets are a great example here, right? They are in the final playoff spot. Unless you go by percentage points, then they're out of a playoff spot, which would mean they would be a lottery team. Well, what are you going to go by? If you're going to have the draft before you finish the season, are they going to be in for the lottery or not? So there's a lot of questions. They're going to try to answer them because if they feel it's best to have a June draft, they're going to do it. So there are a lot of questions there. But, I really like this. Let's finish. And the regular season, I don't care if they finish or not. Just go to the playoffs and have the Blue Jackets be a part of it. I'm okay with that. Really okay with that. But you just go finish. And then as soon as the Stanley Cup is awarded, you do the draft, you do free agency, and you open training camps a short time after that. I'm fine with all of that. Just one more thing to address in Jim's question here, where he talks about it being a fake cup or an asterisk against it. And he says, if the Blue Jackets win it for the rest of his life, we'll have to hear that Blue Jackets can't be included in any talk of the great teams because of the way that the playoffs went down and all that. What a terrible thing that would be for you, Jim. I told you I wasn't attacking you before, but in this one, this is me and you. What a terrible, terrible thing that would be for you if the Blue Jackets won the Stanley Cup, and then you would have to hear that people say that it wasn't legit. Wouldn't that be terrible? Wouldn't that be terrible to watch your team win a championship for the first time? You know what I would tell those people? I can't even tell you what I would tell those people that would say that it wasn't legit. And I can't tell you because the language this is not the place for it. But again, to me, that part of it is a ridiculous argument. Ridiculous argument. People would say it wasn't fair. I could care less. A win is a win is a win. Championship is a championship. Wouldn't bother me in the least. I would lose exactly 0 seconds of sleep over that. All right, a couple more things here. Kurt, since you are our eyes when listening to broadcasts, I was curious if there were any specific jersey combinations that opposing teams wear that make it difficult to read numbers. Also, is there a specific arena or press box view that you don't like and why? Uniforms. Let's start with uniforms. I don't know if I've called any of the games where Tampa is wearing those black uniforms that they have, but they look very challenging to see when I've seen them on TV. but I don't think they've worn them when we've played them. So I'll have to reserve judgment on that. I'll tell you what was bad a couple of years ago when Edmonton was wearing the royal blue jersey with the orange numbers on them. And this goes hand in hand. The new building in Edmonton, you're very high and very far back from the ice. And I'm not really complaining about it because when we first went in there, I heard nothing but people complaining about that and how far away it is. I still hear people in the league talking about how far away it is. Listen, I waited a long time to get to the National Hockey League. If they want to put me on the roof and tell me to call the game from the roof, I'll do it. I don't care where my seat is in the building. I'm in the building. Okay. I'm in the building. I'm in the league. So it's those particulars. I don't care. That being said, when the combination between those jerseys they were wearing and how far away you were very, very tough. You had to look at the scoreboard a lot to try to figure out who was actually who on that. But other than that, I cannot think really of anything that any other uniforms that are a problem to me. It's and when it is, it's always the third jerseys because that's always where they're doing something new. And the last thing that people think about, and this in college football is a great example of this. The last thing that they think about is the guys upstairs who are trying to call the game. They're just looking at selling jerseys because, again, like I said, college football, look at some of these special uniforms that they wear. There's no way you can see that from upstairs. There's no way. And the same is true in hockey. You know, they're trying to make something that will sell, not something. They're not worried about me being able to see it. They're worried about how many are going to fly off the racks. So the primary jerseys, I think, are good. Nothing's jumping out at me as being a bad primary jersey that you can't really tell what's happening. But usually when there are problems, I would say 99.8% of the time when there are problems, they're third jerseys in whatever sport. Third jerseys. They're just looking to sell them. They're not worried about my job. They're not looking to make my job easy. They're looking to make the person in the souvenir store's job easy. And I get that. They're getting a lot of money for it. So what are you going to say? All right. I have another voice question to run for you here. And we should have fun with this. Here we go.
Hi, Bob. This is Noah Beckman hailing to you from the Clintonville neighborhood of Columbus. I wanted to know, what can you tell me about the times you were the most angry when you were on the air? And I'm talking about times where either there was a bad call or a non-call that should have been made that really cost your team, the team blowing a big lead, a guy not working hard enough, etc. I'd love to hear some of those experiences with the Blue Jackets, as well as the rest of your career, if you'd like to expand on that. Also, wondering, when did you start saying, "I've got two words for you, game over"? And by the way, I am looking forward to the day where you can say, "I've got two words for you, Stanley Cup." Go Jackets. Hope everyone's staying safe and sane out there. And Bob, I really appreciate you continuing to put out great content. It's a nice source of normalcy during these pandemic times. So thank you. Hi.
All right. Well, thank you for that very much. Okay. So again, new system here and trying to figure things out. I got to figure out how to get the questions to stop repeating when they're over. But I've already got something in my mind. Okay. We're just playing it by ear, figuring it out as we go. That's what we're doing. This is it's a live test, I guess you would say. But let me answer the questions. I've been mad a lot. I'm fiery, right? When my team loses, I hate it. I don't know if I can go to one specific thing here. The game against Chicago, where the Blue Jackets should have won it in overtime and then had to go to the shootout and Korpisalo got hurt, that was one. When they were going over the whole argument about whether or not time had expired and the clock had run when it shouldn't have run and all that, I was furious. I don't remember what I said, but I know I was mad. And sometimes I know I'm so mad that I'm so trying to concentrate on what I say. Those are the times, I'll be honest with you, when you're losing by a bunch, like if it's a game where you're getting blown out or a situation like that, that's where I really wish I had a color analyst with me. because there's sometimes I just need to shut up. I just need to shut up and let it stew and let somebody else talk while I'm mad, so I don't say something I shouldn't say. But that was one instance I was where I was really mad. I do know that. Um, but all right, I'll tell the story. The time I was the most mad in my career was when I was doing AAA baseball. We were in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, playing against the Red Sox AAA affiliate there. And the way it's set up in my booth has glass on either side of it, and there's another booth on each side. Now, the one on my left was empty. The one on my right was a small booth, and there was one guy sitting in there. Wasn't broadcasting. He was in there. He had notes on the counter, and he was just sitting in there watching the game. Okay, so the situation is this. We're on a road trip. We're on like a 9-game, 10-game road trip, something like that. We're terrible. It's August, and we're team is terrible. And we had just been in Scranton a couple of days before. And the situation was, okay, going into the game in Scranton, we were out of pitching. We just used up a lot of pitchers, and the guy that was going to pitch was already told, you're going at least 5 or 6 innings today, whatever it was. And if you're getting shelled, sorry, we don't have much in the relief department today. You're going to have to go out there and get shelled. And early in the game, first or second inning, I don't know what it was, he threw inside on a guy, and it wasn't intentional. It was an accident, and the umpire immediately threw him out of the game. And so we're in big trouble. We already had overextended the pitching staff, and now the guy that was supposed to go 5 or 6 innings is out after 1 or 2, whatever it was. So that happened in the first leg of the trip. We go to Pawtucket for the second leg of the trip, and we have the same umpiring crew. They went along. So here we are. It's 4 days later. We've got the same guy behind the plate, and one of our outfielders is batting, and there's a pitch that is inside on him, and he kind of looks back at the umpire, and I have no idea what he said, but it's a quick hook, bang, he's out of the game. So it's the same guy behind the plate, and I just went nuts. And I don't know what I said on the air, but I said it I said it the way you have to talk on the air. But then the commercial break came, and in Pawtucket, the press box hangs out over the stands. So you're almost looking right down on home plate. So the inning ends, and the teams are changing sides, and there's music playing, and it's loud. It's a big crowd, and it's loud, and I'm looking down at the umpire, and I yelled something at him, and it wasn't very nice, and it was colorful in a bad way, and I was mad. Look, there's no way the guy could have heard it. There's no way whatsoever. And I was just blowing off steam in my own way, in my own little booth. And I was screaming and just, calling him names. And all of a sudden, that one man in the booth next to me looked over, and the glass was thin enough to hear. And he said, okay, that's enough. I'm a major league umpire supervisor. Now, normally, what would happen when somebody tells you that is you would shut up, and you would, keep your opinions to yourself, and you just go back to work. Well, that is what should have happened. But instead, I looked at him and I said something to the extent of, I don't care who you are. This guy screwed us 4 days ago, and now he's screwing us again, and it went off. So anyway, long story short, when we got back from the road trip, I got a call from the general manager, and he asked me to come in to work early, and told me that we had to have a conference call with the president of the International League, Randy Mobley, who in the league office is in Dublin here. I see Randy all the time when I go to Clippers games. And it's funny. He's never brought it up to me, but I will never forget the situation. I had to get on a conference call, and he was livid at me because this guy, the supervisor, went and talked to the head of the Major League Baseball Umpires Association, who then called Randy, and then this is how it all trickled down to me. Anyway, I got suspended. I got suspended for a day in the International League. So that's when I was the maddest in my career. All right. And to answer your other question, when did I start saying 2 words for you, game over? I don't know what year it was, but it was sometime in Syracuse. And oh, by the way, I appreciate you in the Stanley Cup thing. If it ever gets to that point, I've got something better. And I've got it planned. And I thought I'd have to use it last year, and I didn't. But anyway, we'll get there someday. Even if there's an asterisk next to it, we'll get there someday. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Thanks for your questions. As always, you can send them to me on Twitter at Bobby Mac Sports, or you can email me, Bobby Mac, BOBBYMAC, at BlueJackets.com. This week, what's coming up? We've got another Blue Jackets drop-in that I will do with Jody Shelley. We're going to talk with Blue Jackets defenseman Marcus Nudavara coming up this week, so make sure you look at BlueJackets.com for that. And then on Friday, another CBJin30 for you. Haven't decided on my guest yet, so I'll be winging it. As we go along. But Friday, big day, beginning of May. I can't wait. I can't wait to see how things are going to change. Oh, by the way, I'll let you go with this. I told you the NBA is allowing its players to go back on the 1st, if they can, in their respective cities. I've heard rumors that the NHL might be looking at the middle of May for their players to get back and start skating in small groups. So don't hold me to that. That's just what I hear. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks it's going to happen, but we'll wait and see. In the meantime, thanks again for your questions. Thanks for being here. That'll do it for a Monday Mailbag edition of CBJin30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Until next time, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.